This footpath wasn't always a footpath. For 100 years, it was a railway line. Choo-choo! About 4 miles in length, this path connects the towns of Newport Pagnell and Wolverton. Nowadays, it's used by walkers and cyclists. But back in the 1860s, it was a railway line. Back then, trains ran along here, servicing the local brickworks and farms and carrying workers on their way to Wolverton Works, a large train maintenance and repair site and one of the region's largest employers that employed many men from Newport Pagnell. Wolverton Works had opened in 1838, which was long before cars and buses, and so workers had to walk miles to work and miles back again, which would have been quite the grind after a hard day's labour. With goods needing to be moved and such a large number of workers making the daily journey, a railway line was commissioned in the early 1860s. The line was built and opened in 1866, first carrying goods and then, soon after, passengers. Locals knew it by several names: the Newport Nobby, the Nobby Newport, or simply the Nobby Line. At its height, the Nobby Line carried hundreds of workers, shoppers and schoolchildren back and forth each day, and for decades this small branch line was a lifeline between the two towns. Along the way there were stops at New Bradwell and Great Linford, and you can still see the remnants of the stop at Great Linford today. And not far from the old station, the line crossed the Grand Union Canal over this sturdy bridge. As the 20th century progressed and cars and buses became more common, what had once been a necessity slowly became less essential as more people chose to travel by road. And after a period of consultation, and despite many objections, the decision was made to close the line in the late 1960s. At the same time, the then new town of Milton Keynes was being built, and that would eventually span the gap between Newport Pagnell and Wolverton, and gradually absorb the surrounding villages. The Newport Nobby was converted into a pathway and was later incorporated into Milton Keynes' redway system, a network of red paths for cyclists and pedestrians that is spread throughout what is now a city. My great uncle worked at Wolverton Works, and my aunt went to school in Wolverton in the early 60s, and both travelled on the train for their commute. As a child in the 1980s, it was a curious thing to hear them talk about the old railway, because to me it was simply a long path, which had deep hedges to play in during the summer and signs warning us about adders in the hedges. And it was a favourite spot for blackberry pickers too. With bushes dotted along the path, families would head out with buckets to pick fruit to make jam. Nowadays it's much the same as when I was a kid, if perhaps a little less well preserved in places. It's used daily by cyclists, runners and dog walkers and people out for a quiet stroll, and remains a straightforward route along the edge of the expanding new city. I do sometimes wonder if the people who travel this path know that they are walking along generations of history, and whether it will remain a part of local memory rather than quietly fading with time. I hope its story carries on into the next generation, but time will tell, I guess. Well, that's this video. I hope you found it mildly interesting. Perhaps I'll see you next time. Choo choo!